Tom, thank you very much. The time is just after 25 to 8. Time was already short for the last international forces evacuation flights from Kabul. And then came the warning from the UK, the US and Australia to stay away from the airport because of an imminent ISIS threat. Head to a land border instead was the Defence Secretary's advice when he was speaking to MPs. There have been panicked scenes already at one of the main border crossings into Pakistan. ISIS is only one of the extremist groups active in Pakistan and in Afghanistan, and Pakistan's National Security Advisor Dr. Moeed Yusuf has warned that a security vacuum left by abandoning Afghanistan will see terrorist organisations take root again. Dr. Yusuf joins us now from Islamabad. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could we talk first of all about the situation with the borders? Because when we spoke to the Defence Minister on this programme a moment ago, he was saying that the hope is that the Taliban will provide safe passage for refugees to and through land borders. Is Pakistan prepared to accept Afghan refugees coming through?
Thank you, Michelle. First of all, let me tell you, as a responsible actor in the International Committee of Nations, Pakistan's always been on the front lines of humanitarian assistance. In this case, we have evacuated or helped evacuate 7,000 plus people so far from 18 countries. They've transited through Pakistan or have entered Pakistan. Over 500 by our own airline in very difficult security situations, prioritizing this over our own aviation needs. 25 female journalists is in less than 24 hours. So Pakistan's working with the entire international community day and night. Whatever we can, air or land borders, we are doing that. And no other country comes close to what we have done so far. That said, let me also tell you that there isn't actually any panic on the borders. Pakistan's liberalized its visa. We are allowing people to come to the border, get visa on arrival if they qualify. We are working with the entire international community, and there's been public praise for that. So Pakistan's ready and willing and available.
Our information has been that as far as refugees are concerned, ordinary Afghan citizens, not people who have a permit to be in Pakistan as well, there's only been one border crossing, Spin Boldak, going into Chaman in Pakistan's Balochistan province that has been open to those people.
And Michelle, there's a problem in how we are framing this conversation. So far, the blessing in disguise is there hasn't been a protracted conflict and a bloodshed. So the refugees influx or the crisis that we were thinking about as the international community actually has not come. These are people, there are 20 to 25,000 people who cross over the border every day into Pakistan and go back. This is that conversation happening. But let me also tell you, as important as evacuation is, and I'm not downplaying the importance for a second, we are again making the same mistake as the international community. The 1990s, where Afghans, the average Afghan was abandoned, Michal, that's where the problems came from, the security vacuum, 9/11. And I'm afraid every time we talk about evacuees or there's going to be a humanitarian refugee kind of crisis, why do we want to create refugees? We have a moment to learn from the mistakes. The West made major mistakes in the past. Pakistan supported the West throughout the 1980s against the Soviets, and we were abandoned. The average Afghan was abandoned. We were sanctioned. Are we headed to the same again? Why aren't we engaging Afghanistan for the sake of the average Afghans to ensure there is no crisis?
But what do you mean? Well, let's get your answer to what you mean by engaging with Afghanistan at a moment like this, because the Taliban want to see foreign forces completely out. There are days remaining till that deadline passes. So clearly we are at a pivotal moment. That could well see the security situation deteriorate further, more people arrive at your border. But how do you think that security vacuum can be avoided, or is it already a reality?
Look, this is one side of the story. The military troops are leaving. It should be now in tandem with a renewed political and economic engagement with Afghanistan. We have to talk for the people of Afghanistan, make sure there is assistance, there's a governance plan, there isn't a collapse, and so there aren't refugees. Refugees won't come just because the military troops are leaving. Unfortunately, we've already seen that 2 decades of $2 trillion were wiped away in a week. So it's not that people are leaving because the troops are leaving. People didn't have any trust in the troops, it seems, to begin with.
But are you using your influence with the Afghan Taliban to push them to fulfill their promises to include members of other parties and form a broad-based government?
Look, this is the responsibility of the international community writ large. People keep talking about influence. I think we forget, Michelle, Pakistan is the victim of the war in Afghanistan. Do you realize that we've lost 80,000 people, $150 billion, and we have housed over 3 million Afghan refugees? Even today, nobody has been more generous.
Okay, I do recognize that. But Dr. Yusuf, going back to the question, are you prepared to use the influence that you have to push the Taliban to form a broad-based government? And if they don't do that, would you be prepared to recognize a Taliban sole government?
Let me be clear. The UK is directly engaging the Taliban every day and has been for months. The US is directly engaging and has been for months. UK, US and others have much more leverage now than Pakistan does because the Taliban want legitimacy. They want assistance to continue. We don't have the money. You do. So yes, Pakistan is doing whatever it can, but it has to be a united effort. If the signal to the ground, to the average Afghan is the only people who the West cares about are the ones who are associated with their organizations or diplomatic missions, we are headed to make the same mistake of abandoning Afghanistan, and there will be a crisis. Rather than talking about the crisis as inevitable, which will affect Pakistan more than anybody, 3 million more refugees, we cannot take a single more. We need to engage and ensure we do right by the Afghans. The international community promised them for 20 years. We cannot abandon them again. And mind you, when we talk about Pakistan, we must recognize that this is the country that has suffered most after Afghanistan. Please don't keep talking about Pakistan as if we have some magic wand and we can fix the problem. Only the international community together can. We must not make the same mistake again. Pakistan is evacuating. We will do whatever we can. But what is happening inside Afghanistan? All countries are directly engaged. Everybody together should make sure that the Taliban have a moderate entity, inclusive government, and then support Afghans for peace and stability.
But if they don't form that inclusive government, are you saying that in the interests of the people of Afghanistan, avoiding the security vacuum, keeping things as stable as possible, then countries should be prepared to recognize the Taliban alone as the new government of Afghanistan?
Why even ask this question? We don't know what the answer is. The noises from the Taliban so far, their demeanor actually suggests that they want a legitimacy, want to remain moderate. Now, we should have this conversation, hold them to it, and then agree what incentives they'll be given in terms of governing Afghanistan, in terms of assistance. Why do we jump to this conclusion? Oh, they're not going to do something. What will we do? Pakistan cannot afford a protracted conflict. Pakistan cannot afford Afghans being abandoned. Afghans deserve better from the world. Please don't overshadow the mistakes that have been made just by turning a blind eye to what will happen next if we leave. History will not forgive us, and a security vacuum, mind you, will end up with the same results for the West that it did last time. And UK is much more vulnerable than the US and others. So I don't understand why we keep talking about Afghans as commodities. Oh, there's going to be a humanitarian crisis. No, we must avoid it. We must do it together, and we must influence everybody in this environment to make sure that Afghans get what they require. They're suffering from drought. They don't have food. Not today, even under Ashraf Ghani. But we didn't speak. Nobody wanted to speak about it then, even though Pakistan kept pointing to it. Pakistan has suffered enough for 4 decades, still being blamed for what has happened very unfairly. We are the victims, will not continue to be there. Please don't use us as a scapegoat, but help Afghans. Talk to whoever is there right now. There is a reality on the ground. The Taliban are in control. We must keep them honest to their promises, but engage for the sake of the average Afghan. Otherwise, we will end up in the same place. It wasn't good last time. It was terrible for Pakistan, and Pakistan deserves better, Michelle.
Dr. Moeed Yusuf, National Security Advisor of Pakistan, thank you.